Welcome back, everybody, to Alchemize with Alanna, where we explore the turning points that shape leaders, visionaries, and change makers. And today's conversation bridges two worlds, medicine and meaning. I'm joined by Dr. Heather Hinshelwood, a physician who's walked the front lines of emergency medicine and now helps others reimagine what true wellness looks like, especially for high-performing professionals who've spent years putting others first. That's something that I want to bridge in this conversation too. This is about redefining what health, resilience, and purpose looks like from the inside out. So Heather, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks, Alanna. Thanks for having me.
There we go. Can you hear us okay?
I can. I think you may be a little frozen. There we go. I think that's better.
Okay. Hopefully this will be a little bit better. But all right. So as we dive into this, as always, I like to ask the audience a question. And that is, when was the last time that you prioritized your own well-being with the same focus and urgency that you give to others? Share that in the chat if you'd like, or just write down what comes up for you. And as we're having this conversation, we'd love to hear from you so that Heather and I can address your questions or comments. So topic, how society's view of health is changing. And I think the last couple of years has really had a big impact on that. I know it has for me personally. In fact, I kind of have had an overall awakening, which has actually impacted how I view and take care of my own health. So you've spent years in the medical system and helping people through their hardest days. And you've also seen where that system succeeds and where it falls short. So what do you see as the biggest shift in how people today define health?
Well, I think it's the increasing recognition that the standard of care in current Western medicine is unpalatable to the vast majority of us. Keeping in mind that the standard of care is you go to the doctor to diagnose a disease, not to prevent a disease. You get started on medications. You become dependent on said medications. You aren't taught how to, what interventions you can do personally. In fact, there's kind of an underlying theme that you can't fix your health, that we're diseased and broken. And it's kind of like a white knight mentality, right? Western medicine is the white knight riding in on the horse to save us from our diseased, dysfunctional bodies. And, and then the steps past that are, well, then you need a big surgery, and then you're not going to do well after the surgery. And that's an expected outcome. That's not a complication. You need a 4-vessel bypass because of your obesity, smoking, uncontrolled diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. And then you're going to end up in a nursing home after that because you're going to be too weak to take care of yourself. And that what I have just described, which most of us would find absolutely horrific to be staring down the barrel of, as far as Western medicine goes, that is well within the standard of care. Right. And like, we know we need some help. We know we need to do different, and so you go to the place you think you're supposed to go, right? To your doctor or to a doctor, and are met with kind of shock and awe that, whoa, I am, that's not what I want. I don't want the 4-vessel cabbage. I don't want to end up in a nursing home. So then what do I do now? Like, I think our expectations of what we want for our life are very different than what Western medicine is providing us for our life right now.
Absolutely. And to your point, the two go-to solutions is here, take this pill, or here, we need to cut you open and do the surgery. I mean, I've been, a couple of years ago, I went to a clinic with my mom who wasn't feeling well, and we were traveling, and I was shocked how quickly the doctor there asked her 2 questions and then immediately jumped to writing a prescription. Mm-hmm. And I was furious, but I had to keep my mouth shut because I'm not her caretaker, and she's,
Yeah.
you know, she can make decisions for herself. And then as far as like the standard, you know, even something like the food in hospitals, I've heard people compare food in hospitals from those that have stayed somewhere in the United States versus, say, someplace else, like even Mexico, where I spend a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
The quality of the food that they get, it's super interesting. So yeah, I don't know, at one point something happened to transform all that, but here we are today, right?
And it's not just hospitals, it's any institution, any nursing home, anybody who is incapable of cooking for themselves and has to depend on some entity to provide them food. It's horrific. And I have started realizing in the ER that I think we're seeing a lot of vitamin deficiencies that we have forgotten about because we shouldn't be having them. I mean, if you look at pellagra, like, look at the symptoms, look at what some of the old photos and illustrations looked at, you know, like for a pellagra related rash. And I'm like, I think I see that once a shift, you know, the symptoms of vitamin D deficiency, vitamin C deficiency, and we are not looking at any of this. And, you know, God forbid a physician bring that up as like, hey, we're missing this. And it's almost like you're a quack for bringing it up. We really have neglected the foundations of health, much to our detriment.
Absolutely. And there's so many things I'd love to bring up that I'm doing now that I wasn't really doing before that have made my health amazing at the age that I am. But before we mention anything like that, you know, it's, you and I are seeing these things in the medical arena, let's just say, but in general, I don't think we're alone. And you're probably seeing this too, that patients in general are no longer satisfied with being churned through the system. You know, what do you think is driving the awakening?
I think our generation is looking at the health of our parents and our grandparents and what the last parts of their lives have looked like, and realize that that's not what we want for us. And seeing the limitations in what Western medicine can do for health. And again, saying, that's not what I want. I want more. I want better than that.
Yeah. 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 There's so many things I could say to this, but so healing, it's in fact, that's a word that it's almost as if we're not really supposed to say that word. So I've noticed, I pay attention to language, but in terms of healing, like real healing, what does that look like to you when we can move beyond just symptom management?
Well, you know, it depends. And I think, you know, when we talk about healing, we do have to acknowledge two things: that we are fighting age and we are fighting gravity, right? And we have injuries that collect over time from those two issues that, you know, like, I can't change age, I can't change time, I can't change gravity. And so, you know, I want to be realistic with people, but, you know, there are lots of things your body will make better if you give it the opportunity and the tools to do so. And so you know, but we're so used to in Western medicine, there's no healing. It's just chronic disease process. You know, it's awful.
Well, you may not realize it, but you just shared an interesting distinction that has to do, I think, with mindset. And I'm seeing more and more about this too, which is the passage of time versus the mindset around aging. Yeah. Because, so I'm 55. People think I'm a lot younger. And when I look at some other 55-year-olds, they don't look like me. They look older. They're on God knows how many medications. I am not, these days, I am not on a single medication.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's, I think, a rarity.
Yeah. I'm at the stage in life now where I used to think, oh man, if I get chest pain, I'm low risk. And now I'm like, no, I'm not low risk because of my age. I'm getting, I have risk stratified up, unfortunately, but I'll go see a patient in the ER, and you know, I get done seeing them, and I'll look at the EKG and their date of birth is on there, and I'm like, oh, then I'll go ask the nurses. I'm like, do I look like that? And they're like, no. Chronic health, like chronic disease that's untreated and disregarded, will just eat you alive in the most unpleasant way.
Yeah. Well, and my next question, but before I go there, though, I want to acknowledge a comment where somebody says like soft strength, clear mind, open heart, peace where there used to be pain. That's super important too, because healing in the emotional realm and the mindset realm, processing past traumas can also help someone heal physiologically as well. Would you say that's true?
Oh, 100%. There are some disease states that when I see them, I have to get to know the person a little better and start poking and prodding for unresolved, things like unresolved sexual abuse as a child. It just manifests itself in such a specific way that, if we don't heal it, our body will do something with that, and it may not be to our benefit.
Yeah, because it holds on to it. I feel like, in the concept of cellular memory, like we hold on to that pain, that emotional trauma. And these days, most of my work, even though there can sometimes be a spiritual element to it, it's mostly, in terms of the work world and business. But it's interesting how somebody will come to me to help them in their career, in their business, or in leadership, and then they'll start talking to me about their health and some health goals, like wanting to work out again or wanting to lose some weight. I'm not a health coach, but to your point, I will start asking questions about what are you doing to take care of yourself in that whole conversation around, work-life balance, which is really more around work-life integration, because it's not a true 50-50 balance. But over time, as they do the work, they have to do the work, and they start changing their mindset and taking some actions, I've noticed people lose weight during our time together.
Yeah.
Start working out again. And it's really, and then that impacts how they show up at work and right, their communication and their relationship. So
their ability to think clearly and their energy level and, all those things that you need to have to be a high performer.
Right. So on that note, how can leaders begin to take responsibility for their own health in this kind of new paradigm?
Well, keeping in mind that you don't have to be the CEO of a company to be a leader, right? Parents are leaders of their children. You can be leaders of your siblings. Even just showing up at work in the right way, in some fashion, you are being a leader to those below you. Okay. So with that in mind, what can we as a whole do about our health? I will tell you, number one, numero uno is weight lift. And that is not an option if we want to stay independent during our lifetimes. This is one thing that we really have to change, especially for women, because, I'm 46. When I was in college, Kate Moss was the beauty ideal, right? I am 5'9". I've never been a size 0 in my entire life. So that was not, and we were told that muscles were ugly. And even now I know some women I know will be like, I can't weight lift. I'm going to bulk up. I'm going to look like a man. You're not. I've been doing CrossFit for 8 years now, and this is as bulky as I get. So, but pick your poison, no muscles or a nursing home.
Right.
Yeah. So that's, it seems so basic, but it's true. There are two kinds of strength. There are the kinds that keep us upright and help us push and pull heavy things. And there's the cardiovascular performance. So more like walking, running, biking, swimming. But it's the weightlifting that's going to keep our health on track and it's going to help keep away insulin resistance. It's going to prevent falls. It's going to slow cognitive decline. All the things that we worry about as we age, the majority of them, so many can be controlled or limited by maintaining a good, healthy muscle mass. So that is the first thing. Okay. Number two, getting processed foods out of our diets to the best of our ability.
Yes.
There's no shortcut there. You have to shop the perimeter of the grocery store, right? Anything with a cardboard box, probably not something we should be eating. You know, I was reading over a paper yesterday from a group of physicians who are advocating that the underlying cause of all cancer is disordered glucose utilization in cancer cells. And, you know, watching the logic laid out, I don't think they're wrong. And it keeps coming back to processed foods and high sugar foods. You know, it's just not good for us. So getting the junk out of the diets. And, you know, I'm not advocating paleo or vegan or anything else. And to some extent, we all have to kind of experiment with our own bodies and see what feels the best to us. But being intentional about what we put in our mouths and our body and using it as fuel, because that's what it is. It is fuel to keep our bodies going in a healthy way. The other thing that I really advocate for are the right supplements. The research coming out about supplements is insane. It's so cool. I love it. Have you seen the research about creatine and Alzheimer's?
No, but share it. Yeah.
There was a study that just came out. They had all these Alzheimer's patients. They gave them 20 grams of creatine a day, and their cognition got a lot better.
Wow.
We're finding basic nutritional things: creatine, collagen, vitamin D. You know, we can keep going, but a lot of these chronic disease states that are devastating our society right now are getting better if we jack up the nutrition and optimize it. And that would be the last thing I would say, is that we've got to switch our mind state from managing chronic disease to optimizing health. That should be the name. Is not just, okay, I'm just pre-diabetic right now. Nope. We're not sitting here waiting for you to become diabetic, and pre-diabetic glucose levels are far too high as it is. So what can we do to optimize your glucose control? That needs to be the next step.
Yeah. Well, even that term, because again, I pay attention to language. Yeah. It's like planting a seed in somebody's brain that you are on your way, and that it's inevitable that this is the direction that your body's going to go in. No, it's not.
Nope.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I also love what you said about not one diet. It's not a one size fits all. I've seen people go vegan and get healthier. I've seen people need to come off being vegan because their health was suffering and they needed to start eating a carnivore diet. I myself, I have food allergies. I can't have gluten. My health skyrocketed when I took it out of my diet. And in terms of nuts, like, what would you say is the healthiest nut? I've heard that the walnut is. I'm actually allergic to walnuts. So
yeah. I hate it when they, like, somebody says, well, the healthiest anything is XYZ.
Yeah.
Well, if that were the truth, then that would be the only thing on this planet. But that, you know, but we have this selection of things. So, you know, moderation is key, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving on, because I could talk about this stuff with you all day long. But okay, so another question for the audience. What is one way that you've started redefining health in your own life beyond just physical well-being? And so where we're going next is the cumulative trauma and personal turning point for you. Yeah. So you shared that your own shift came from that accumulation of trauma during your medical career. And that's something that a lot of leaders in companies can relate to, because they carry years of invisible weight, if you will. And I don't just mean physical. Yeah. In fact, you know, as far as work trauma, the term of work trauma is finally being stated and allowed to be talked about. So what was that moment when you realized that something had to change?
I don't know that it was one moment, but it was certainly a time in my life. You know, I'm an emergency medicine physician. I have a wellness practice, but I still practice emergency medicine. I've been in the ER for 25 plus years. I mean, that's, you know, pronouncing somebody dead is an average shift. So, you know, the amount of traumatizing things that most people deal with maybe once in their lifetime, like, that's just what happens when you show up in the ER, right? But on top of that, you know, I joined the U.S. Navy to pay for 3 years of medical school. And so, you know, I did undergrad at Florida State. I went straight to the University of Florida College of Medicine, straight into UF Shands Jacksonville for emergency medicine training. And that's phenomenal emergency medicine residency. Well, it's phenomenal for a reason, because of the high rates of trauma and critically ill patients, to include children. So, you know, that's an insane 3 years right there. And then I went on active duty, and within 7 months of leaving residency, I was in Afghanistan. And, you know, the day-to-day on a deployment is far less hectic than your average morning in a trauma center, but the trauma of cracking a 20-year-old Marine's chest, cutting through the names of his buddies that he tattooed on his body who were killed, and now he's dying, like that's a whole other level that I wasn't anticipating. You know, it's very different than dealing with, you know, the guy from death row who creeps you the hell out. Like, you know why he's there, right? That I was able to kind of stuff down that trauma for a very long time. In 2018, on my 39th birthday, my brother-in-law was killed in Syria. And I was on, I'd seen the Fox News headline about a military helicopter going down near the Iraq-Syrian border. I said, nope, Carl's okay. He's going to be the QRF. He's going to respond. It'll be all right. It'll be okay. And then just before midnight, while I was on shift in Walterboro, South Carolina, I got a text from my sister that Carl was that it was his flight. And
yeah,
that was a really sucky night. I had to work 7 hours after that. And, you know, talking to patients and then just bursting out crying and having to tell them why. And so that experience and what that
you're good
did to our family put me in a position where I had to, you know, it brought everything from Afghanistan just straight up. And then made the day-to-day, more mundane trauma harder to deal with. And so I had to do something about that. And on top of it, my marriage fell apart, and not because of the trauma, you know, lack of priorities and poor choices, but and I could handle that. That was okay. Those two things, I had it together, and then COVID hit.
Oh God.
That was the straw that broke the camel's back. I had 2 small children in the middle of nowhere, literally on 5 acres, and with some scary stuff going on in the background, and then COVID on top of everything. And that just broke my body. Like, the things that I had been doing that took care of my health failed. You know, I had, when my marriage first started falling apart, I took up CrossFit. That was a godsend for me. I had a group of women who were looking out for me, and all our kids were little together, and I was building muscle and accomplishing things like pull-ups and climbing ropes that, you know, I didn't think at 40 I was ever going to be able to do, right? So that really grounded me and gave me a sense of strength that I really needed. But then COVID hit, and it just broke me. And like, I put on 40 pounds. Like, wow. My body hurt so bad. I mean, my back hurt, my knees hurt, my hips hurt. There was nothing I could do. It didn't matter how much I ate, how little I ate, how much I worked out, how little I worked out. It was just there, and that was the way it was. And I don't know how else to describe it, except it just felt like this high cortisol stress state that I could do absolutely nothing about. Nothing. Yeah. And when things sort of started to open up again, I actually went out to, like, as like the big, like, reward, because you know, for most people for COVID, it like wrecked their jobs, but I was like, oh God, job security, here I come, you know, because like, who are they going to need, you know?
Right.
So that was not, that did not hurt me economically. So as a treat to me and my two children, we flew out to Arkansas to see some friends of mine from the military. And it was such a wonderful trip. We had such a great time. And one of my friends, Linda, she introduced me to a class of drugs I had actually not heard of since I was a medical, actually no, since undergrad, called GLP-1s. The first one being the daily injectable Saxenda. And she was like, girl, you got to do it. You're going to love it. And my body just hurt so badly. So I ordered some, and it was within 24 hours. It was like the weight of the world came off my shoulders, and I like my body didn't feel like I was in a vice grip anymore, and I could breathe.
Amazing. Yeah. And really quick too, just in case people don't know what a GLP-1 is, can you just briefly describe that?
Yeah, so that's a class of drugs, semaglutide, tirzepatide, also known as Wegovy, Ozempic, Mounjaro. The one I'm referring to, Saxenda, was one of the first where you gave yourself a daily injection for weight loss. It had a dual purpose, weight loss and diabetes. I was using it for weight loss. You know, it's kind of in the news cycle right now where it's getting all the hate. But I will tell you, I think that is a miraculous class of drugs that is restoring health in this country to a degree that we have never seen. And, you know, that those who have benefited from it know what I'm talking about. And I would ask people who have not been in a position to need them, please do not be hateful and angry about them, because it just, that's a medical decision between a patient and a physician. And we should not be shaming people around it. That's just unacceptable.
Yeah.
So
well, it's I mean the medical choice that has been challenged big time over the last few years in various ways. And you know, I have heard the other side of how it's affecting people's health in not so great way. But to your point earlier, everybody's body is different, and our reasoning is different. So that's the challenging part of this, because these things are available to us, and yet, you know, how are we making the choice to do it or not to do it? But I also just really want to quickly acknowledge what you've shared with us, and there's some really beautiful support for you in the chat, by the way.
Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, and appreciating what, you know, because that's a lot. That's a lot to go through in a short period of time. And, you know, and when we get challenged with these kinds of life situations, you know, that's where we are left to a choice. And this is something to create some simplicity around it. It's like we are at choice every single day, every moment of the day. In relation to everything we are doing, every person we come in contact with. And it's really about empowering ourselves. But what has surprised you most about your own healing journey?
You know, I don't know that if anything that was like a surprise. It's more like things have just kind of snuck up on me. And it's been, oh, that sounds like a good idea. Let's see how this works out, you know, because in the middle of this, this was so random. I started working part-time doing stem cell injections at a clinic on Hilton Head. And, you know, that was something I didn't know a whole lot about. I thought, you know, I would just kind of make people feel better, like steroid injections or something. And then much to my surprise, I'm watching people get better, which was like that. You know, I was at a place in my career where I had resigned myself that I wasn't making anybody better. I was just watching them slowly die horrible deaths and intubating them and coding them in the ICU after watching their health decline for 5 years. That was what my experience in medicine was. And then all this thing that I decided to do because it's close to home and I have 2 small children, holy cow, people are getting better. I've never seen this in medicine before. I didn't know this was possible. What is going on here? And so that opened a door to learning about a whole section of medicine that was new to me. And on top of it, the owner of the clinic, Brad Fraum, he gave me the professional license to do whatever was best for patients.
Amazing.
Yeah, which, you know, like ask anybody who works for a hospital. You can ask the hospital for something all you want. You're not going to get it.
No, because it's corporate controlled. Yeah.
Yeah. Versus, you know, because I actually, Brad he's retired now, but he's actually a chiropractor. I got a lot of flack from other physicians for working for a chiropractor. I'm like, you know, I told the man that we needed an ultrasound machine for some of these injections I'm doing, and he got me an ultrasound machine. I don't experience that in any other part of medicine. So, you know, then that opened the door where, you know, the mindset of the clinic was, we are here to optimize health. We want people to get better. We want them to do well. So what can we do to make that happen? And that, you know, and that's where things really took off for me, because I'm, you know, I get a sick patient put in front of me. What can I do to make them better? A lot of the what we have showing up, we have, you know, orthopedic injuries. Some of them, you know, the best thing for them is a surgery. A lot of them, it's not the best thing for them. So recommending some other options. You know, I've got some medical train wrecks that Western medicine has nothing for, absolutely nothing. And it also, you know, really exercises my doctor brain and makes me sit down and say, okay, let me consider this disease process and what I know about this disease process. What is going wrong in this person's body that they are exhibiting this disease process? I may not have all the details like on a cellular level, but I think I know what's going on. And these are the things I know can help make that situation better. So here's your plan of action based off of my medical knowledge. And it also allows me to pull from, you know, some different disciplines. It's like the best of all possible worlds, right? Because
I love that.
Yeah, because I'm like, hey, you know, person sits in front of me and talks to me. Let's say they've struggled with alcohol use, and this is very typical of high performers, unfortunately, is alcohol abuse, right? Okay, well, here's what we'll do. It looks like you've got a mood disorder driving a lot of this, undiagnosed anxiety that you have been able to funnel into being a CEO, but you've got some, you know, some things you're losing control of this situation. Hey, I really think let's put you on some Wellbutrin, because you kind of look ADD to me a little bit too. We're going to work on maximizing your diet, but Wellbutrin for that, transcranial magnetic stimulation, and maybe some low dose naltrexone and NAD to help just make you healthier in general and work on some of the cravings, you know. So being able to have those conversations and really, you know, intervene in super positive ways has been just really, really wonderful.
Interesting. Gosh, I've had to even change the way that I coach certain people because I've noticed a pattern of some leaders, business owners, CEOs, either have been properly diagnosed or self-diagnosed as ADHD or autistic. And I've had to change the way that I engage with them to help them. And yeah, it affects everything.
Yeah.
And of course, the stress level and the physiological impact.
Yeah. Well, you know, the bigger transition for me in the last few years has been, I'm 46. Emergency medicine is a young man's game. And, you know, being in the ER for 12 hours where, you know, you go from coding somebody to, I mean, we had this a couple of weeks ago. I heard somebody scream, ran in the bathroom, found a guy, somebody else's patient on the ground. And I hate this, but like having to shove the family off just so I could start CPR, you know?
Yeah.
And that, you know, that's me on my knees doing that, but I'm in good shape. Thank God. Because if I weren't, I would have been a wreck after that.
Right.
You know? And then and me having to say like, hey, I can't do any more night shifts, y'all. I've done them for 20 plus years. I can't think for a week straight afterwards. So I'm done with the night shifts. And then moving into the wellness space almost exclusively, I kind of knew this about myself. There's a reason I went into emergency medicine. I'm kind of ADD.
Interesting.
Yeah. I would venture guesses to say anybody in pre-hospital and emergency department settings probably has ADD. Just saying.
Well, and your brains work differently, right? And what I love about it, actually, you know, I don't like to call it a disability. I call it challenges, simply because of how it translates in the real world. I've even learned, you know, another time maybe you and I can connect about it, but I've also learned that I have a learning challenge myself. I didn't find this out until my last semester of college. And anyway, it's so impactful.
Yeah. I mean, it's going from, you know, a baby with a snotty nose and an ear infection to a gunshot wound. It does take kind of a special, you know, brain to do something like that. But I also have needed to slow down. And if I'm in the ER all the time, just trying to bandage people back together, I can't, you know, provide the preventative care that I think really gets people's health farther along. And so 2 years ago, my business partner and I actually purchased the practice from Dr. Fraum. And so I'm here full time now so that I can impact more people's lives and optimize health rather than just waiting till they're critically ill, responding to disease and letting them end up in the nursing home. Like, no bueno.
Yeah. Well, I have another question for the audience to think about. Where do you notice unprocessed stress or micro trauma showing up in your body or decision making? Because that will enhance your self-awareness. And I always say, like, until something's right in front of you, you can't do anything about it. It's what you don't know, you don't know. Once you know it, and you see it, you can do something about it. As far as, you know, what people can do about it, I worked with a leader who felt very suffocated by her manager. And after her manager returned from maternity leave, the relationship shifted and every interaction felt intense. She felt watched, second guessed, professionally diminished, and she blamed herself for a difficult conversation months earlier that left her feeling ashamed and unsafe. And in one session in working with her, we unpacked emotional residue, reframed what was really happening, and mapped the exact language that she could use to build connection without rehashing her past. And by the end, she said that she felt hopeful again with a path forward more than she was able to at the beginning of the session. And so with that, I want to just mention to the audience that I am now offering a single session called the Resolve session. It's one focused session where you can untangle those emotional knots, see the real dynamic more clearly, and walk away with a grounded, honest plan that you can use immediately.
I may need to use that session for myself.
Oh, awesome. I love it. Perfect. Well, I would love to chat with you after, and we'll figure that out. Okay, so the last topic. So future focus, reimagining wellness for the modern leader. So leaders in today's work, they carry other people's well-being while neglecting their own, as we've touched on. And wellness and well-being, it has really ramped up to be a forefront topic just over the last few years, probably due to COVID. And what's interesting about that too, so one of the services that I provide to leaders is if they've taken a 360 in their company, I'll help them debrief that. But I walk them through it very slowly, and I have a very unique way of doing it, and they get a lot from that. Because I think most leaders get their report. Sometimes they read it, sometimes they don't. If they read it, they'll peruse through it really quick, look for what they agree and don't agree, and then they close that document and they never go back to it. So there's a lot that can be seen there. But so what's broken in the way that most executives or entrepreneurs approach their health?
The biggest stumbling block I've seen is getting over the hurdle of investing in yourself and your own health. Okay.
100%. Yeah.
And here's what I mean by that is that right now, the best thing, like we as a society have like for the last 2 generations have decided that health insurance and Medicare will make us healthy.
Yeah.
And it is quite the opposite. And we have been letting these entities decide what's best for us. And it is much to the detriment of our personal health and our health as a society. It is in our best interest to invest in healthcare that will preserve health, and that's going to mean out of pocket.
Yep.
It is what it is. I can't change that, but I can change the health trajectory of the patient in front of me. Okay. So that would be the biggest thing I would say is please, please, please do not limit your healthcare to what can be reimbursed by your insurance or Medicare. You're not going to like what comes of that. And you're gonna, you know, end up with cognitive decline at a younger age because you've been burning the candles at both ends. You're gonna, you know, be the 55-year-old having the heart attack because you're so stressed out and you haven't been weightlifting, your testosterone's in the toilet, and you know you haven't done anything about any of these things because insurance will pay for it. Well, that path, that model of decision making about our health will end with us all in nursing homes, which is not that's not acceptable for my life.
Sadly, I've even seen people be reliant on their healthcare, and then when something surfaces, their healthcare system fights them on it and actually doesn't support them in getting the care that they need. And so they end up, if they can afford it, because people can't always afford it, unfortunately, need to go outside anyway. Case in point, I mean, I have had some pretty decent healthcare in relation to some things, but I, at one point, got in a car accident where my car was totaled. And I went to a physical therapist that was paid for by my insurance, and it was doing nothing for me. And somebody referred me to another physical therapist where I had to drive an hour away, pay out of pocket, but she was more of a sports medicine. And once I went to her, I understood how much better she understands the body truly and how it moves. And she got me moving again in ways that I was afraid I would never be able to, and out of pain that the other physical therapists couldn't. Yeah. So, well, what does a truly sustainable wellness practice look like for someone who's always on? And what I mean by that is leaders, you know, especially senior leaders in corporations. They're always on. They're working longer hours. They're looked to for decision making, high level expectations. Things are constantly changing, and they have to keep a composure all the time. And it really takes a toll on them. And then allowing certain people to see things and many people to not see anything because of how they have to show up. So, you know, what does a sustainable wellness practice for someone like that look like?
Number one, sex hormone optimization, both for men and women. You know, we know menopause for women. I think men go through something sort of similar, but maybe a little bit more gradually, just from what I've seen with testosterone levels over time. So optimizing sex hormones, optimizing metabolic health, including using GLP-1s if needed. You know, I'd also like to put in there that the number of diseases that GLP-1s have been studied in and shown to be of benefit in is amazing. You know, doing things like NAD, and I don't like NAD infusions. I like to use it daily injectable periodically.
Just in case people don't know what an NAD is, can you share with them?
Yeah. So NAD is a molecule that's part of the electron transport chain. Literally every cell in our body needs it. It's especially important in heart and brain cells. So NAD to keep you, cognitively sharp is a big one. I I prefer to kind of stay away from statins unless there's like a real indication for it, like smoker who's, risking a heart attack type stuff. And then, I'm a big fan of transcranial magnetic stimulation to help stay sharp. We have one in our office. There's a machine called ExoMind that was released last year, and getting on that thing, man, you can talk about some clarity afterwards. It's fabulous. It's like you sit up and it's like the colors are brighter. It's great. So that is part of my protocol for my high achievers, high performers, and also too, getting on top of musculoskeletal injuries now, because once you're at the point of being a CEO, you've been on your feet a lot, you've been looking down a lot.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Even my own posture. It's like, I'm so cognizant of that. Like, yeah, exactly. Keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. And, so your spine's starting to go, and then, probably a lot of golf too, collecting shoulder injuries, knee injuries, and being aggressive with regenerative medicine, before you get to the point of needing a joint replacement, and like understanding that, like, you can't be taken out of the game for 6 weeks with a surgery like that, where CEOs are in terms of, what it means for the people in their company and who they're responsible for. Like, you've got to be proactive about your health. You just do. And, choosing non-traditional routes that have better, healthier outcomes, people more functional long terms. I think that's really the way to go.
100%. I've been on that journey. I've always believed in chiropractors, but specifically, I have one in LA that I think he's helped my health in ways that no other doctor ever really could. He's a chiropractic kinesiologist. But I'm where I am now. There's a woman. It's sorry if you guys are hearing the gardener outside, but there's a woman that I see here who does cranial sacrum work. But she works on literally every joint in my body, and she's moving my bones. And after working on me for 2 hours, I feel like a completely different person when I walk out of there. It is amazing. Yeah. And there's many other natural things I'm doing these days that I was not doing before.
Are you weightlifting?
I'm not weightlifting. I was doing that for a while, but what I'm doing now is salsa dancing.
I mean, I love that, but the research shows if you want to live independently, you need to be able to hold 75% of your body weight in your hands for a minute.
Fair enough. And, I need to start doing that again, because I was on track with that, but then I started getting dancing, where actually it's for balance, for spinning. That's been helpful. Squatting and my legs, like certain moves, my legs are, the muscles in my thighs and my legs are so much more
toned.
Thank you. That's the right word. But yeah, the upper body strength, that's where I'm probably lacking. So fair enough.
Bone density, that's the best way to improve bone density is weightlifting. Yeah. And you got to be able to get yourself off the ground. You got to,
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I used to do yoga in that way and do the plank for X amount of time. But I have an old nerve injury in my right arm that kind of comes and goes. So when I'm able to do it, it's great. But when it's inflamed, it's really painful. But we could talk about that offline. But all right, for the sake of time, one more question for the audience. If you had to rate your current state of wellness overall, physical, mental, and emotional, what area feels most neglected right now? Write that down. So, Heather, I love this. I'm so glad that we connected, and I hope that we can connect again very soon. And this is, for me, I talk a lot about transformation, not necessarily calling it out in that way, but I work with people in their lives and their businesses and their careers, and they need to confront truths for themselves to be able to effectively do that. So, what you're doing is taking it to a whole different, deeper field of self-healing. And I thank God there's people like you on the planet. So how can people learn more about you, find you?
Well, my clinic is on Hilton Head in South Carolina. It's a vacation destination. golf, beach, you name it. I love it here. It's amazing. So we're on the north end of Hilton Head. The clinic is Fraum Health, F-R-A-U-M. So if you go to fraum.com, F-R-A-U-M.com, or you can call our office number, 843-681-7777, and speak with our staff. There's no phone tree. You'll just talk to a real person. Yeah, love to help everybody out as many as I can.
Fantastic. And audience, for those that are here listening, I have a gift for you. If you sign up for my newsletter, a lot of my clients, when they show up to these sessions, there's usually one or two things that they bring to the table. One is difficult decisions, another is hard conversations. And so I've created the Conversation Prep Toolkit. It is complimentary. You can download it from my newsletter, and it will help guide you through and prepare you for a potentially challenging or difficult conversations. And if you ever have any questions, you can always reach out to me. And if today's conversation resonated, please stay connected. You can subscribe to my newsletter. As I mentioned, you can also like and follow my business page so that you don't miss future lives. And also share this episode with someone who is ready to work on their own health in a different way. Maybe they've been talking about it and, using that word should, like I should do this, I should do that. And it's time for them to take action. So Heather, anything else you want to share with the audience before we say our goodbyes?
No, just the biggest thing I would say is, what I say to so many of my patients is that you have the power over your own health. The decisions we make about sleep, stress, working out, and food impact our health far more than any physician ever can. So, please, those are within your power and within your reach. And if you will get your arms around those, your life is yours to own.
100%. Yeah. Honoring yourself. I call it honoring yourself, and treating yourself and your body with that level of respect in a way can be hugely impactful. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for being here. I'm Alanna Levenson, and this is Alchemize with Alanna. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Thank you, Alanna.
Thank you.